I was playing my Sega Genesis upstairs in my parents' bedroom when my dad called up to me and asked me to come downstairs. In the kitchen was a brand new Super Nintendo, and with a hidden camera in the kitchen by the wall, secretly positioned to capture my reaction, Mom and Dad gave me the greatest surprise of my retro life.
New Nintendo! She got me the new Nintendo!
Hey guys, quick update before we move on to the rest of the episode. I want to tell each and every one of you where we're at in our campaign to make My Retro Life a full-time thing. Over on Patreon and in our YouTube memberships, we are already, I'm not even joking, we are already past the halfway mark in our goal of $3,000 a month to make My Retro Life go full-time. That is just unbelievable, guys, and I think I speak on behalf of my entire family when I say thank you. Thank you for catching this dream and being a part of it. There are a bunch of different tiers for you to join with many different rewards. We're building an awesome community over on Patreon and YouTube memberships. So head on over to the My Retro Life Patreon or sign up right here on YouTube memberships. Link will be pinned in the comments.
At $200, a Super Nintendo setup costs twice as much as the old system, and you can't mix and match. For the money, the company promises better pictures, sound, and adventure.
When Dad and I started hearing about a Super Nintendo in 1991, something that would replace our Nintendo Entertainment System or potentially replace it, we were all ears. I mean, we were super excited. At the time, we had Nintendo Power Magazine, so they were really hyping it up like crazy. We were seeing images of this system and write-ups from the writers over at Nintendo Power, and they were great about hyping up this system. I mean, showing the early pictures of the console and the screenshots of the next Mario game. I remember seeing those screenshots, which were in prototype form of Super Mario World, and it just looked so wild.
Introducing the next generation from Nintendo, new Super Mario World, created especially for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System.
The possibilities seemed endless to me as a kid, like, oh my gosh, this opens up everything and it's going to be bigger and better and the graphics are better. We were all about graphics back then in the 90s. I was so excited for the release of this console, and really we were counting down the days. But then something terrible happened, something very traumatic for me that I will never forget, and that's my house getting burglarized. When my house got robbed, thankfully, my mom and I were not at the house and my dad was working, and we came home, though, from a quick trip over to Randall's, the local grocery store. We were preparing to go see my cousins up in Dallas. My aunt was getting married, and I remember that specifically. We were very close to going to that wedding, and we went out for a family errand, and when we came back, my mom opened the door. What I remember is just her dropping all of the groceries that she had in her hands and just screaming. I remember standing there in the doorway as she looked around briefly and saw that all of our things had been stolen, all of our valuables. And one of those valuables was the thing that was most valuable to me, my Nintendo. My dad quickly came home and consoled us, and then we called the cops, and I remember the police officers being there, and just the whole day. I remember the whole incident. As things started to settle down, I remember my dad and my mom having a discussion right in front of me about what to do about Tyler's Nintendo. It was the thing I loved most in the world, my Nintendo Entertainment System. Dad knew that the Super Nintendo was a ways off, but there had to be some sort of stopgap replacement to fill the hole in my heart that was created by these thieves. And Being a gamer himself, I think my dad was very forward-thinking and smart. He knew that the Sega Genesis was a thing, and it was a 16-bit console. I'm sure he was thinking to himself, I don't want to go and buy this old, outdated console, something we already had previously. I'd rather move us to the next level. 16-bit, baby. And that's exactly what he did. We went to Toys R Us that day, and instead of coming home with a Nintendo, we came home with a Sega Genesis. But what about the Super Nintendo? I think this was always a part of Dad's plan. I think that he wanted to own both a Sega Genesis and a Super Nintendo. He knew that when the Super Nintendo launched in August of that year, that there was no way we were going to have enough restraint to not get this console. I mean, we were gamers and we loved video games. The Nintendo Entertainment System was my first console, my first video game love, if you will, and the Super Nintendo only promised to be more.
A bit more Mario, a bit more of what you want. It's 16-bit, and it's yours only if you get new Super Nintendo.
With the Super Nintendo, there was much promise. I remember seeing commercials in the lead up to the Super Nintendo launch. You know, we didn't know who he was back then, but Paul Rudd, he really sold those Super Nintendo commercials. And I remember seeing these commercials and just salivating, guys, just wanting so badly to own a Super Nintendo, to be able to experience Super Mario World and get myself reacquainted with my Nintendo friends. Mom and Dad knew this was going to be exciting for me. They knew that this was going to be something that I would cherish and that we would own and love and share together for years. And so they decided that they were going to surprise me with a Super Nintendo on launch day. They were going to keep it secret and not tell me about it. My mom and dad lived for these kind of surprises, and the Super Nintendo surprise that August is by far on the top of the list. Back in 1991, there really wasn't a whole lot of hype that went into a console launch. You know, this was before the internet, so we really weren't on top of things. We just stayed on top of it through magazines and word of mouth. We did know when it was coming out, though. There was a hard date of August 23rd. So, on that day, my family waited, and my dad was very strategic. He waited for that day, and that morning, he called up several stores and finally arrived at a winner. He called up G&G, which was one of our favorite video game stores in Southwest Houston, inside the Westwood Mall, and they had one in stock. Now, they did tell Dad on the phone that they couldn't hold him the console, and this posed a problem because Dad was at work, and he knew that this thing was going to sell out. And so Dad thought fast, and he thought hard. He was at work. He was stuck there. He couldn't leave. Now, this was the morning of launch day, and so my dad knew he had to do something and do something quick. So he called up my mom at home and said, Cindy, while you're home and while Tyler is in school, which was a short shift, you know, I was in kindergarten at the time, so I would only be there till like 12 o'clock. He said to my mom, I need you to head to G&G right now and pick up the Super Nintendo. They have it in stock. I can't get to it, but if you can go and get it, we can surprise Tyler with it tonight. And so that's what she did. She went to G&G, got the Super Nintendo, and after my dad got home from work that day, they put their plan into action. I was playing my Sega Genesis upstairs in my parents' bedroom when my dad called up to me and asked me to come downstairs. I don't remember what game it was, but that wouldn't matter in the moments that were about to transpire. I would forget all about the game I was playing because downstairs in the kitchen was a brand new Super Nintendo. And with a hidden camera in the kitchen by the wall, secretly positioned to capture my reaction, Mom and Dad gave me the greatest surprise of my retro life.
Hey, Tyler! Come here!
Put on pause, Mommy. How do you do that? Push the top button.
What's that in the microwave?
Huh? Huh?
What?
The new Nintendo! She got me the new Nintendo! What?
You're on candid camera. Is that a surprise?
Yeah. Really big surprise.
Mommy went and got it today.
I got it for you today.
Oh, Mommy.
While you were in school, I went and bought it for you.
How'd you buy it with all that
We
money?
called the man and they said they came in. So we said, what the heck?
You know, my mom says here that she went out and got it for me. And I love that she puts this little detail in there because it helps me remember the entire event. And that was such an awesome thing for her to do. You know, usually it was my dad who was involved in many of the video game surprises, most of the video game surprises. My mom wasn't a gamer, but she wanted to delight my heart. She wanted to give me a thrill. I really hit the jackpot with both my parents and the childhood they gave me. And this Super Nintendo surprise is like, it's up there. It's the top. I remember my dad hooking up the console and just everything that transpired that night. I just remember the feeling. I don't remember all the little details. The video footage helps me remember, but more than that, I remember the feeling. If that makes sense to you. I just remember how elated I was, how overjoyed I was to be finally getting to experience the next level in Nintendo gaming. Every little moment that's captured here in this video footage is just, you can see it on my face. I'm just mesmerized.
Back here, mushroom. Come back here.
Dad made sure to capture this because I think he knew that this was going to be a very pivotal moment for me in my childhood. Growing up, my mom and dad always told me that they didn't really have much, that their parents really didn't buy them much. They were in families with siblings, and in my mom's case, several siblings. And, you know, it was hard, especially for a family that grew up with parents that came out of the Great Depression era. I mean, it was not common back then to give toys and games to your kids at this level. I was very, very fortunate that my parents saw through that and really wanted to make sure that my childhood was something I would never forget. Because I think they realized and knew how hard life can get. I think they realized that when you step out of childhood, you kind of lose something, or it's possible to lose something. And I think they wanted me to hold on to that feeling. I owe it to them for making sure I never lost it. You know, my cousins, Mikey and Manny, they too got a Super Nintendo around the time it launched. And just like my dad, their mom, my Aunt Michelle, was very keen on filming them and showcasing the Super Nintendo.
Maddie's playing Super Nintendo. Mommy's wiggling the camera.
It was an event, guys. It was something that every Nintendo fan, every gamer around the country and the world was all sharing together. We were all united together for this event. And that's part of the magic of a console launch, isn't it?
Whoa. I missed it.
It really is a time in history where a large chunk of humanity rallies around one thing, and one positive thing too. It's something where everybody can get excited about something that's going to provide them joy. August 23rd, 1991, a day where much joy entered the world with the Super Nintendo. Console launches are a moment to celebrate, and I really wanted to just talk about the Super Nintendo launch in great detail, in greater detail than I ever truly have before, because we stand at the precipice of a brand new Nintendo console launch, the Nintendo Switch 2. And even the marketing for this console has brought us back to those days with the Super Nintendo. Good old Paul Rudd starring once again in a Nintendo commercial for the Nintendo Switch 2. And honestly, history truly does have a way of repeating itself. And when it's something awesome like the launch of a brand new Nintendo console, man, that's something to remember.